Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this particular video, let us discuss the types of audit. There are very much types of audits we can find out. There are n number of types of audits. So we have on the basis of four bases. First one is on the basis of organization. First audit is on the basis of organization. Second is on the basis of function. Third one is on the basis of approach. Fourth one is on the basis of audit dimension. So let us discuss everything in detail. First one is on the basis of organization. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಯಾವ ಟೈಪ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದ್ರ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೂಡ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. So the first one is statutory audit. So this statutory audit it is performed under a statute. ಇದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. So there are certain businesses and certain organization which has to compulsorily do the statutory audit. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳು ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯುಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So those organization which has a mandatory to do statutory audit falls under this particular category. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಏನು, ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಏನು, ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಏನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ನ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಕೆನ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್. ಇದನ್ನ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಅಥಾರಿಟಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಯಾರು ಕೂಡ ಇದನ್ನ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯೂಟರಿ ಬಾಡಿ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So here are the following organization which fall under this category. We have companies. According to Companies Act of 2013, which is incorporated companies must and should do statutory audit. Banking companies, according to the Banking Regulations Act of 1949, which are all the companies will be considered as banking companies, they have to compulsorily undergo the statutory audit or compulsorily statutory audit na ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Next, insurance companies must do statutory audit. Cooperative societies, the cooperative societies also need to do the statutory audit. Next, public and charitable trusts. So all the public and charitable trusts ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯುಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಲಂಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಅದರ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹೆಸರು ನಾನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಯುಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಸ್ ಅ ವಾಲಂಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ when the organization wants their accounts to be audited, so suppose an organizations are there which wants their books of accounts to be audited, then voluntarily they can perform this audit. By themselves they can perform this audit. This is also called as private audits. ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಡಿಟ್, ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ವಾಲಂಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ಪವರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಏನೇನು, ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಕೈಲಿ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ನಡುವೆ ಅಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ದಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋ ವಾಲಂಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಇಸ್ proprietary concerns, sole proprietorship, partnership firm, or any unregistered clubs, small clubs will be there, or small societies will be there. They can have this voluntary audit done. So these three organizations can have their voluntary audit. Next, classification on the type of functions. Functions basis ಮೇಲೆ classify ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿದ್ರೆ there are two types of audit. So ಎರಡು ರೀತಿಯ audit ಎರಡು ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡೋದಿದ್ರೆ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕಂಪನಿಲೇ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಫ್ ಕೈಲಿ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಡನ್ ಬೈ ದೇರ್ ಓನ್ ಸ್ಟಾಫ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ they would have appointed certain staff members. Those staff members will be responsible to do this internal auditing. So they will do the thorough examination of accounting transaction. So each and every accounting transaction they will check, they will verify everything. So what happens, this type of verification when they do, they will get to know any frauds and errors are there in maintaining the books of accounts. So they will rectify all of those when it is very small size only. So these type of audit, it depends on the size of the organization also. Big organization will do this internal audit. So it will be some very small organization is very difficult for them to have this internal auditor and all. But big organization where the nature of business is very huge, those people will definitely go for this internal audit. So next, this external audit, it is performed by auditors. So auditors ಮಾಡುವಂತ audit ನ external audit ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಈ external auditor ಅಲ್ಲಿ auditors are the outsiders for the business. ಅವರು ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್, ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿರೋರು ಅಲ್ಲ. ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್. So this auditor should nowhere be related to the preparation of accounts of the organization. Auditor ಈ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡಿಟರ್ನ ಕೈವಾಡ ಇರಬಾರ್ದು. He is only responsible for verifying it. He should not prepare the books of accounts. Auditors are the qualified chartered accountant. Auditors qualified chartered accountants ಅವರು. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಆಡಿಟ್, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್, ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ನ ಲೀಗಲ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅಗೇನ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಗೇನ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ಸ್ ಗಳಿದೆ. ಆಯಾ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಚ್ಯೂಟ್ ಅದ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರವ್ರ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಚ್ಯೂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ICAI. ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡೆಡ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಗೈಡ್ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕ್ ದಿ ಆಡಿಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಆನ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್. ಆನ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ, ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ 3 ರೀತಿ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ. ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್. ಟೈಮ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್, ಟೈಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅಗೇನ್ 3 ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಬಂದು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಮೀನ್ಸ್ it is also known as detailed audit. Continuous audit is also known as detailed audit. So under this, the detailed examination of books of accounts happens. So books of accounts na complete agi in depth agi illi scrutiny ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. So it happens in a regular intervals like weekly, monthly or once in 3 months, which is quarterly. So ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ವೀಕ್ಲಿ ನಡಿಬಹುದು, ಮಂತ್ಲಿ ನಡಿಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ 3 months ನಡಿಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಆಯಾ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರ್ವಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಕಂಪನಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನೇನು ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೋ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ವೆರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಯೂಶಲಿ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ನ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಆ ರೀತಿಯ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಸೂಟಬಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಬಿಗ್ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಸ್. Next, what are the advantages of continuous audit? Quick preparation of financial accounts or final accounts. So what happens? Auditing is done at very frequent intervals. So all the errors and frauds are detected, all mistakes are corrected. So finally, when the financial year is over, we can easily prepare the final accounts like balance sheets, P&L account and all. So quick preparation of final accounts. So it will help out in that. Next, early dividend to shareholders. So what happens? This particular continuous audit, they will do at the regular intervals. So immediately before the end of financial year, they will know the profit of the organization. So then easily they can decide how much dividend they should give to the shareholders. So shareholders will get the interim dividend also, because if the audit is done on half yearly basis, they will get interim dividends. So soon after the financial year ends, the shareholders will get their part of dividend. So they will get the early dividends. Otherwise, they have to wait for the financial year to get over. They have to wait for the company's books of accounts to get the audited. Then they will get the dividend. But in this case, the books of accounts is up to date. So immediately the auditor will prepare the balance sheet. He will verify the balance sheet. Then immediately the shareholders will get dividend. Next, up-to-date accounts for banks and investors. So what happens in these types of audit? Okay, the final accounts are up-to-date verification ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, up-to-date ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So for investors, it is easy for them to make certain decisions whether to invest in the organization or not. So even banks can also think whether to give loans or not. So it will be helpful for them also. Then check on employee. So what happens when the auditor is frequently visiting the organization? The employees will be alert. They will work with effectiveness. So they will try to avoid not to make any mistakes. So what happens? Even the employees will put some efforts to keep the books of accounts maintained correctly, and books of accounts will be up to date. So check on employees. Next, prevents errors and frauds. So what happens when you regularly check the books of accounts? If any frauds are there, any errors, if the accountant has done, that will be notified by the auditor, and they can easily correct all those errors and frauds. Next, increases familiarity with clients' businesses. So what happens when auditor frequently visits the organization? So he will spend more time in the client organization. So even auditor can easily analyze what is the actual organization is about, what are the operations that happen in or this business. So all this information he will be familiar. Next, thorough audit. So what happens when it is deep verification? Because every month auditing, if it has been done, then the deep verification of books of accounts happen. So there will be no chances of missing any of the items or any transactions. So the thorough audit is one of the advantage. Next, utilization of audit staff. So what happened? Even the auditing staff, auditing team will be busy throughout the year. So what happens? Suddenly, if only auditing is done only after year end, so there'll be overload of work. They have to check all the books of accounts for 1 year books of accounts at one day. But here, monthly, if they check, there is no much overload of the auditing staff. These are the advantages. Next, we have some more disadvantages also in continuous audit. That one is expensive. So what happens when you ask your auditor to visit the organization monthly, weekly, or quarterly? You should pay more audit fees. Even audit fees increases. So for small organization, it will be too much expenses. But anyway, it is beneficial for a larger organization if they have more profit. But for small organizations, it will be too costly. Next, audit in installments. So what happens since the audit work is done in intervals, okay, not at one single time. So what happens? The audit may become insufficient because what happened is during the last visit, suppose this month auditor has come, okay, there are some queries and there are some misinformation that is not unsolved. Next month when he comes, he'll sit with the next month's work. Again, this month's work is uh, neglected. So those things will happen. And even what may happen is uh, actually the auditor should maintain the audit notebook. He should have the audit program, everything. So what happens? The work done after each visit when he has done to the client's organization, he has to note down what and all he has checked, what and all he has to solve, everything. So this should be carefully noted in the notebook. That is the solution for this. Next, dislocation of client works. So what happened is if a proper audit program is not adopted, okay, so it will again disturb the regular work of the client. So what happens? The accountant, he'll be working on a daily basis. If auditor keeps on coming to the organization, this accountant should go and report to the auditor. He should answer the questions of auditor. So this will disturb his work of the accountant. So there is more time waste will happen. So it will be disturbing the operations in the organization, because suddenly when the auditor comes, he'll ask 101 questions. The accountant should be ready to answer all those questions. So it will disturb the accountant work. Next, errors and frauds in the books already checked. So what happens every month when the auditor comes and verifies the books of accounts? This accountant, what he may do, the book which is already verified, he may change certain transactions. So again, there is a fraud. So it will be very difficult to detect these frauds as such. Next, monotonous or tiresome or tedious. So what happens is continuously if you are going to one organization, continuously if the auditor comes to organization, he may lose the interest, because regularly if he is coming, he may lose the interest to work there. So again, when he loses the interest, the quality of audit comes down. That is one of the disadvantage. Next, absence of link. So what happens if the audit work is not well planned? Okay, so he doesn't have a proper audit program. Again, what happens is this particular link will be missed. So he will not have idea what he had done previous month, what he will do this month auditing. So the absence of link is one of the disadvantage. Next, conflict between audit and account staff. So what happens when too much auditor has too much questions? So our accountant staff may lose his temper, and there'll be a conflict, there'll be a fight between auditor and the account staff. So this will spoil the healthy relations of the organization as well as the auditor's healthy relationship. So that is one of the very, very biggest disadvantage. Next, second is interim audit. So this interim audit is conducted between two annual audits. So means that is after 6 months. Every 6 months it is done. So the main intention of undergoing this interim audit is to declare the interim dividend. So they will give half yearly dividend or interim dividend to the shareholders. So ಆ ಒಂದು interim dividend ನ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ಒಂದು interim audit ನ undergo ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So simply, if you want to tell, it is between the two balance sheet audits. So when we will do the balance sheet audit at the year end, at the ending of the financial year. So between two financial year, one audit you will do, that is after 6 months usually, that is interim audit. So what is this interim audit advantages? It gives a quarterly result. So what happens if you are a public limited company where you have issued shares to the public and they have purchased? So when you declare the quarterly result, the investors will actually have the clear picture of the organization. They can compare the results of two different quarters. So that is again advantage. Next, interim dividend to shareholders. So when the auditing happens interim after 6 months, so the shareholders will get the interim dividend. So that is they will get some part of dividend even after the 6 months. So that is one of the advantages to the shareholders. Next, quick preparation of financial accounts. So since that you have already done the interim audit, the final accounts will be easily prepared because half year you have already audited. Only remaining half year you have to audit. So the preparation of final accounts will be as easier. Up to date accounts. So you have, when you are doing very quarterly or half yearly, so your books of accounts will be up to date. So investors can make decision whether to invest in the company or not, and bank can also think of whether to give the loans or not. So it will be very easy for the banks and investors to take up the decision. Next, check on employee. When interim audit is done or auditing is done it regularly, the employees will be aware that the auditing is taking place. So they will carefully work with the accounts so that they will also avoid certain errors and mistakes. Next, prevents errors and frauds. So when you are checking the books of accounts very regularly, half yearly, so any frauds if you find out or any errors if you found out, can easily prevent those errors and frauds. So that is also one of the advantage. Next, enables thorough final audit. So it checks very deep. So the books of accounts are verified at very deep. So the auditor has more time. So when he takes the interim audit, if he has already done, then while preparing the final accounts, he has more time because he has already done half of the work and he need to only do another half work. So he can carefully do the final audit. So it will help him to do the thorough final audit. Next, utilization of audit staff. So what happened when interim audit is done, the auditor will also visit the organization very frequently. So it is like he's not idle. So he's even auditor also keep on working with us. So even the auditing staff will be busy. Next, what are the disadvantages? It is very expensive because uh, in a year it is like auditor instead of doing one audit he is doing two audits. So again the fees also will be double. So it might be expensive for small organization. Auditing in installments, as again when half of work in installments it is done, it is a natural tendency that the auditor may forget what he had done in the first part of the auditing. So that is also one of the disadvantage. Next, disrupts accounts work. As I told you, when he comes again and again to the client's organization, the accounting regular work will stop because you have to go and answer to the questions of auditor. So the accounting job will be pending again. So this will cause a disturbance to the regular work of the organization. Next, under the time basis, we have one more, that is periodical or final audit. Periodical or final audit. So this type of audit is done only at the end of accounting period. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಅಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಮುಗ್ದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಪೀರಿಯಾಡಿಕಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಫೈನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇಯರ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಇಯರ್ ಆರ್ ಚೆಕ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಕೌಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ನ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾನೋ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಬಂದು ಅದಷ್ಟನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ವೆರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು ಫೈನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. In this case, the auditor visits the client's place only once in a year. So only once in a year, ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದೇ ಸತಿ ಬಂದು ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು. So it is known as final audit. Next, we have scope basis. So what is the scope basis? Again, we have two types in that. One is complete audit. So what is this complete audit means? Where complete books of accounts, all books of accounts, ಎಲ್ಲ books of accounts ನ ಕೂಡ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಏನು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ಯೂಶಲಿ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. Next, partial audit. So partial audit, what it means, only few books of accounts is verified. ಸೊ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ಸಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವೆರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಟು ವೆರಿಫೈ, only those books of accounts will be verified by the auditor. But this type of audit is not permitted to the limited companies. ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅವರು ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅವರು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರು ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Next, we have objective basis. So what is objective basis? Again, we have two types, balance sheet audit and occasional audit. So balance sheet audit in the origin. So it is of recent ಆಗಿ ಬಂದಿರೋದು ಇದು ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ದ ವೆರಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಫ್ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ನ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದೊಂದೇ ಹೆಡರ್ಸ್ ನ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. So in this type of audit, balance sheet audit, from the balance sheet they will start checking the books of accounts. They will not start from the books of accounts directly. They will directly start with balance sheet and they will go back. ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಟ್ರಯಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಲೆಡ್ಜರ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜರ್ನಲ್. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಒಕೇಶನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. So whenever the organization wants to do the audit, that time they will call the auditor and they will get the auditing done. So ಇದು ಒಕೇಶನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಆಗ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕರ್ಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ನ ಜಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್, ಬ್ಯಾಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ಶೂರೆನ್ಸ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. This kind of audit cannot be carried out by joint stock companies, banking companies and insurance companies. Only the proprietary concerns, proprietorships, sole proprietorships ಅವರು ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಒಕೇಶನಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದು. Next, the fourth classification we have, that is classification on the basis of audit dimension. So there are various types of audit which are classified on the basis of audit dimension. First is tax audit. So tax audit is done in order to know how much tax you have to pay to the government. So for the purpose of assessment of tax. ಸೊ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ನ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ವೆರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಡಿಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸೆಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ನ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. So it is one of the technique of management control. So here they will examine the activities of all the management at all levels of management, and they will even covers the functions of management like planning, organizing, staffing, directing and controlling. So it is just checking how efficient is a management ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಫಿಷಿಯಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲಿಂಗ್, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್, all these things, how efficient is the management. To check that, they will conduct the management audit. Next, cost audit. So here they will check the cost records. Cost audit ಅಲ್ಲಿ mainly cost records ನ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಕಾಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಫ್ ಎನಿ ಫ್ರಾಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎರರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್, that will be taken care in this audit. Next, system audit. So what happens, there'll be an accounting system maintained in the organization, accounting softwares and all accounting practices. So it is to check whether all those accounting practices are up to date. So there is no old version. So ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಡೇಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಅಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಡೇಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೊಸ ಹೊಸ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದೇ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. Cash audit, basically they will check all the cash transaction, cash receipts, cash payments, everything. So we'll check all the vouchers. So this is one of the oldest concept of accounting. ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಹಳೆ ಕಾಲದ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಇದು. ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಸಿಕಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಅಷ್ಟು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವೆರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Next is social audit. So every organization has something called as corporate social responsibility. Every organization should fulfill certain social obligations. So to check how much social obligation it is fulfillment, whether all the social obligation the company is fulfilling is it or not. To check all those things is a social audit. So company ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿಯ social obligations ಗಳನ್ನ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ರೀಸೆಂಟ್, ಸೊ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ಬಂದಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಸೊ ವೆದರ್ ದಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ರೈಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ, ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿ ಎನರ್ಜಿನ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಎನರ್ಜಿನ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ವೆದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ wasting any energy like solar energy, electric energy, like that. So checking out that it is using the proper energy and it is not wasting any type of energy is energy audit. Next, proprietary audit. So what is this proprietary audit is, basically you examine the allocation of resources, like how the allocation is, resources are allocated, and whether the company is following all legal requirements, ನ್ಯಾಯ ಲಾ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, in terms of even financial aspects of the organization. So it ensures that whatever the public money the company has acquired, taken, it is properly utilized. So ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮನಿ, ಈಗ ಕಂಪನಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮನಿಯನ್ನ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ತನ್ನ ಪಾಕೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ತುಂಬಿಸ್ಕೊಳಕ್ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದೇ ಪ್ರೊಪ್ರೈಟರಿ ಆಡಿಟ್. Next is performance audit. So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ whether the organization has grown up or not, so whether in terms of production, sales or profitability, okay, it is to check whether whatever the capital, what is the amount is invested as capital, whether proper returns the company is getting. ಸೊ ಕಂಪನಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಕಂಪನಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬಂಡವಾಳ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕಂಗೆ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಕಂಪನಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡೋದೇ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ನ್ಯೂ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್, ಅಗೇನ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ನ್ಯೂ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಚೆಕ್ಸ್ ವೆದರ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಲೀಗಲ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಕಂಪನಿ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಯಾ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ರೀತಿಯ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಸೇ ಲೈಕ್ ಎನಿ, ಈಗ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಲಾ ಏನೇನು ಹೇಳಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದೇ ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. Next is forensic audit. So forensic audit, it evaluates the firms or individuals' financial records to derive evidence used in a court of law or legal proceeding. So forensic audits require accounting and auditing procedures and expert knowledge about the legal framework of such. So any frauds agidre, errors agidre. So this type of audit is used when certain frauds and errors happen. So in order to find the proof, evidence for criminal behavior, so it is usually the investigation that happens when certain frauds and errors happen. That is forensic audit. Hope you have understood the types of audit very well. In my next video, I'll come back with advantages and disadvantages of auditing. Thank you for watching the video. I'll come back with the next video.